Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's Brian and Jim here with Drink a Beer and Play a Game, and something feels a little different here, Jim.
COVID's over!
I don't think that's correct. I just think
Science.
We're finally doing these videos together.
Yep.
And Jim, I gotta say, before we get into our video, this has been long overdue. You suck! God damn! Talking shit over stream! Making me play this piece of shit game!
I didn't pick it!
What happened to you?
I fell.
That's right, you did. So, what are we reviewing today, Jim?
Well, Brian, thanks to our buddy Gamer Astral, we're reviewing our Patreon request game of Donkey Kong 64. Finally. Thank you so much to our wonderful patrons.
I hate this game so much.
Link below if you want to torture us more. Just $5.
Ah! Damn it!
Released in 1999, this was developed by Rare and published by Nintendo. It is a Nintendo 64 exclusive, and it's never been ported for a host of different reasons.
Thank God.
So, yeah, this is made by the team who brought you Banjo-Kazooie, and they slapped a coat of paint of Donkey Kong over it, and a ton of stuff to do. But does it hold up to the universal acclaim it basically got when it first came out? Let's find out.
No, it doesn't.
Alright, you're right. When it comes to graphics, you know what, there's actually a lot to like here. So, it falls in that trend of a lot of Donkey Kong Country games where you have so many very different environments. So you have your forest areas, your caves, your sand levels, your water levels, blah 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 blah. And with the amount of content in this game, you are traveling to a ton of different places. And the typical N64 mainstays of fog and short draw distance aren't as bad here as they normally are. So, at least that's somewhat impressive there.
Yeah, Jim, I guess that expansion pack really pulled through.
Nah, it really didn't. That was just to fix a bug they didn't know how to fix. So they just gave it more memory.
This is for you!
Ow! Anyway, so I really like the graphics when it's nice and bright and colorful in the outside areas. But being a Donkey Kong game, there's a lot of cavernous and cave regions. So, of course, it's just going to look like mud at that point. So, unfortunately, that brings it down a bit. Brian gave it an 8, though, and I gave it a 7. For an N64 game, this is still one of the best-looking ones out there. And when it comes to beer, I'll add 1 beer for the caves taken away from an otherwise colorful game. The sound. Again, this is a pretty solid package here, especially for the N64.
Jim?
What?
Don't.
What?
You goddamn know what, just don't.
What?
Don't mention it. Don't say anything about it, because if you say anything other than it sucks, you're gonna get smacked.
What, Grant Kirkhope did a good job making the soundtrack to this. The music in the game's great. Depending on the game level that you go to, it's all very moody, melodic, it can be tropical. It just goes through all these different kind of feels there and has that pure Donkey Kong sound to it. My biggest gripe would probably be in the sound effects themselves because it's mostly just a lot of grunts and animal noises. There's no digitized voice work, for the most part, to be spoken of. So, I do kind of wish, like, it kind of lacks, especially in a lot of Rare's later games where they had a ton of voiceover samples. And given it's Donkey Kong, you could get away with having goofy animals talking and just leaving the main characters not, but I get why they didn't do it. And then, of course,
Careful.
we get to the star attraction of the show. And that star attraction is known as the DK rap. Worth it. And look, it's famous, it's infamous, it's probably the thing people remember the most about the game. For better or for worse.
It's awful.
It's charming.
No, it's not charming. It's cringy, and anyone who likes it just likes that period of their life. They don't like it because of the game.
So, we both gave it 7s. And it's funny we both gave it 7s, because Brian took away a point because of the DK rap, and I added a point because of the DK rap. And when it comes to beer, I just gotta add 1 beer for that legendary soundtrack.
Ow! The control. Typically, Jim and I go back and forth on the areas we cover in a video game. This video is a little different because Jim wasn't able to play the game, because he got quote-unquote motion sickness.
Made me a sick little boy.
I still say it's a cop-out, even though I know he does get motion sickness from video games, because that's goddamn weird. Putting that aside, I had the pleasure of going through this game. And what I'll say is, if you are someone who really enjoyed Mario 64 or Banjo-Kazooie, then you know what the control scheme is right away. You have the attack button is B, jump is A, and then the Z button is basically what I think of as a modifier for all your other buttons. The C buttons, which are completely useless and I hate it on the controller, first, it actually can adjust your camera. However, I'm going to tell you right now, the only camera button I actually used was R because that refocuses behind you, and you are going to need to do that over and over. If you do Z and the C buttons, these are all now modified buttons for using your grenades, pulling out a weapon to shoot things with, and to enter into first-person mode. All in all, the control is just extremely sluggish. You get used to it really fast, and luckily all the enemies you face are really dumb and very easy, but I gotta say there is just that weird input lag, and that analog stick just absolutely sucks for this game. Doing some of the jumps requires such precision, and it's so goddamn sensitive. The amount of time I fell off of ledges was just ridiculous. It's one of the many things wrong with this game, but it's just not smooth at all. Sure, it's something you can get used to, but it's oddly broken, and that 3D trying to control the camera really did not work with this control scheme. So when it comes to scores, I gave it a 4, Jim gave it a 5. When it comes to beer, I'm adding in 3. I hate those C buttons, and the fact that you have to modify all them to use essential items in the game drove me crazy. The gameplay.
Uh-oh.
Like Jim said at the beginning, I cannot believe the amount of acclaim this game got. But if you ever dig into those old reviews, they actually kind of shit on it. The only positive I ever see is like, oh wow, there's just so much here. But what they all end up saying is, this is a collectathon. And most people nowadays know that's what Rare is known for. But before this game, there was Banjo-Kazooie. And even though that was a collectathon too, it wasn't as bad as this game. The average amount of time it's going to take someone to beat this is easily 40 plus hours. If you know what you're doing, you might be able to do it in the 20s, but if you're a complete bumbling idiot like me, and you don't know where you're going, it can take significantly longer. And let me get out the bat, I did not beat this game because I dumped too many hours into it and was just ultimately annoyed at the mechanics. So the basic plot of the game is that King K. Rool has kidnapped all of Kong's family, and you have to release them. In addition, you're trying to unlock K. Lumsy from his cage.
Wait, Bri. What was his name?
K. Lumsy?
Bri, do you get it? Bri, do you get it?
Damn it! Ow! This plot really isn't important because it gets lost in translation fairly fast because at the end of the day, you go from area to area, and the way you do that is by unlocking a certain set number of bananas. Now, each Kong character represents a different colored banana you can pick up, and then you have to get golden bananas, and then you have to get keys, and then you have to get coins. It's just absolutely ridiculous. There's always a catch in this game when it comes to what you need to do, and the biggest drawback of the entire game is as you go through a level for the first time, you know you're not going to be able to complete it until much, much later. You have to unlock new abilities and the other Kongs in order to get into certain areas or complete these mini-games. And can I say for these mini-games, at first I was like, okay, these are at least a good time killer, they're interesting, but they're really not, and they repeat halfway through the game, so if you didn't like them the first time, you're not going to like them the second time. Some of them are ridiculously easy, like spell out the word Kong. The others, like this son of a bitch race, where you need to complete a perfect race while avoiding the enemy, while collecting 50 bananas. It is absolutely ridiculous. I must have died 30 or 40 times. I was ready to break this goddamn game in half. I never did it. And the only, I guess, good thing about this game is there's an overabundance of everything you need. So if you are someone who really wants to complete this game, here's a fair warning. You don't actually need every banana and every item to get every unlock. The only minigame I came across that was somewhat enjoyable is when you can unlock the original Donkey Kong game, and then I just enjoyed playing that old game versus this. The rest of the game, enemies are a joke. Most of them are one-hit kills, if not at max about 3 hits. And then there are the bosses, which are probably some of the easiest I've ever played in a video game. Now, when you get to this third level factory boss, it is a bit tougher, but just like the mini games, the 2 easiest bosses just repeat. So there's a lot of lazy just reusing of same assets over and over. You're going to keep going back to the same areas, and unlike other collectathons, there's nothing rewarding. When you finally get all the golden bananas in a certain level, you just get a noise. You don't get like a cool cutscene. You don't get something that would excite you. It's just like, oh boy, I got it. The only enjoyment you have is the fact that you never have to go back to that area again. I would love to try to say there's something good about this game, but honestly, everything felt like a chore to me, and maybe I'm just not the type that wants an interactive Easter egg hunt. I don't know. This was just bare minimum, lazy game design in my opinion. The only good thing I can say is that some of the Kong abilities seem kind of cool, but they're so obviously placed and used that being creative is out the window. So when it comes to scores, I gave it a 2 and Jim gave it a 3. We both struggle seeing any fun with this game. When it comes to beer, I'm adding 5, 1 for each of the Kongs, and that goddamn DK rep.
Man, this game's as long-winded as Bri is. Ow! The originality. Have you played Banjo before? Well, I hope you haven't, because it's the same game with just a lot more in it. And a coat of Donkey Kong paint. And a rap. That's about it. We gave it 2s. There's no originality here. So, as far as beer goes, I'll give it 1 for the complete lack of originality, and 2 for having a completely original rap.
Ow! The replayability I can keep short. If you know our site, then you know our scores. The fact that it just has multiplayer automatically gives it a 5. But what I'll say is, this is a game that I think very few people actually completed all the way through. I mean, if you did, that was a
Why?
Exactly. That was a huge waste of your time, and I've seen the ending, and it doesn't seem satisfying at all. But there's nothing new unlocked by beating it certain ways. So there is no true replayability. However, because there is so much to find and unlock and mini games, we technically gave the score a 6. But we can't emphasize enough, you're never going to want to come back to this game because it's fun. So when it comes to beer, I'm going to add 3 because if you're going to make a game this long and add in all the amount of time you're going to spend beating it, you could have went through the effort of adding in some different scenes to maybe give some real replayability, as opposed to just keep going back to the same areas over and over. I'm exhausted from hating on this game so much, and I know it's a broken record at this point, and it's an easy target. I'm still amazed that anyone truly tries to defend the game. We tried to find something nice, and yeah, the presentation is there. It's like they had an idea and just decided the best way to give you a bigger package is to have you keep going back and forth to areas you hate. I don't know what else to say about the game.
That's the killer. Like, every level didn't need to have all of the switching to all of the characters for all of a set number of coins and bananas and blah 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 blah. You can do it here and there. That would have been fine. A little balance would have gone a long way. And I will say, we mentioned in the review, if you're prone to motion sickness, this game will tear you up because of the jank. Like, it's a product of its time too, but just like the jank of the camera itself and the constant switching and like reorienting of yourself, and plus the variable frame rate that goes on, like what happens with a lot of these games. It will tear you up. If you have motion sickness, don't even bother playing it if you never did before.
Yeah, I mean, it's, to me, probably the worst Donkey Kong game, and I don't think that's much of a stretch.
No, it's probably the worst.
I mean, even though we said the presentation was good, keep that in mind. We're saying for the time, it's still aged like dog shit.
The rap only goes so far.
If my hand wasn't tired of slapping you, Jim. Oh, wait, it's good. Ah! But at the end of the day, all I can say is, don't ever play it. Don't spend money on it. Don't collect for it. If you have it, send it to us so we can explode the carts, because that's what I'm going to do to this one, and leave Jim his $30 under his bed. When it comes to scores, I gave it a 3. Jim gave it a 4. Jim had a very small amount of time with it, but in that small amount of time, even he hated on it.
Oh, yeah.
So when we combined all of our scores together, it rounds out to a 4.4. it's definitely below average, and if it didn't have a better presentation and it wasn't, if it was anything other than Donkey Kong, it probably would have been much worse.
Yep.
So with that, thank you, Astral.
Thank you once again to our lovely patron, Gamer Astral, for suggesting this one night when he was drunk and wanting to see us torture with this, which is the exact reason he told me he picked it.
Yep.
Thank you, buddy.
And that's why we love you guys. If you are a patron for us, then please let us know what game you want us to review, even if you want to torture us.
Thank you, guys.
Cheers.
It's good to be back.
When it comes to beer, I'm just going to be an asshole and give this the Donkey Kong from King Kong Craft Beer. Now, you might think this is a good pairing, but this is from a microbrewery in Thailand, and look at that sad-ass label. I've never had any beer from Thailand, but I'm just guessing it's probably not gonna be the best. Otherwise, just grab whatever cheapest beer you enjoy, because honestly, this game does not deserve any kind of really special beer. But remember to drink your beers and play your games responsibly.